In the winter of 1959, 9 experienced young hikers ventured into the icy heart of the Ural Mountains in what was then the Soviet Union. Led by the capable Igor Dyatlov, their mission was a challenging but straightforward winter expedition. They were skilled, they were prepared, and they were supposed to come home. They never did. What happened to them in those frozen wastes would become one of the most chilling and debated mysteries of all time. Weeks after they were due to return, a search party finally located their abandoned campsite. The scene was bizarre and deeply unsettling. Their tent was still standing, but it had been sliced open, ripped apart from the inside. Inside the tent were their belongings: boots, warm coats, food, and survival gear, all left behind. This was in temperatures plummeting to -30°C, a death sentence for anyone exposed. Leading away from the tent, a trail of footprints descended the snowy slope. But these weren't panicked, frantic tracks. They showed the hikers had walked calmly, deliberately, away from their only shelter. More disturbingly, many of the prints were from bare feet, or feet clad only in socks. They were walking into the frozen darkness, willingly, it seemed, without protection. Over the following days and weeks, the bodies were discovered, scattered across the desolate landscape. The first 2 were found near the remains of a small fire, under a large pine tree, over a kilometer from the camp. They were dressed only in their underwear. 3 more bodies, including Dyatlov's, were found between the pine tree and the tent, seemingly trying to return. All 5 had died of hypothermia. The mystery deepened, but the true horror was yet to be uncovered. Months later, when the snow finally melted, the remaining 4 hikers were found in a ravine, buried under several feet of snow. Their injuries were shocking. One had a severely fractured skull. Another had crushed ribs, damage so severe it was comparable to the force of a car crash. A third had similar, devastating chest injuries. And yet, there were no external wounds on their bodies. No bruises, no soft tissue damage. It was as if they had been crushed by an immense, invisible force. Adding to the horror, one of the female hikers was missing her tongue. The official Soviet investigation was brief and confounding. Medical examiners concluded that the hikers died from a compelling unknown force. The case was abruptly closed, and the files were classified, sealed away from public view for decades. This secrecy only fueled speculation. What was this compelling force? Why would the government hide the details of a hiking accident? When the files were finally declassified, they didn't provide closure. Instead, they added more layers to the enigma. Investigators had found traces of low-level radiation on some of the hikers' clothing. Locals and other witnesses in the region reported seeing strange orange spheres, bright lights moving silently across the sky on the night the hikers likely died. The official theory at the time had dismissed an avalanche, as the slope was not steep enough and the search party found no evidence of one. Over the decades, theories have multiplied, ranging from the plausible to the paranormal. Could it have been an avalanche after all, a rare slab avalanche that startled them from their sleep? That might explain leaving the tent, but not the calm footprints, the strange injuries, or why they didn't just dig out their gear. Other theories point to military involvement. Was there a secret weapons test in the area? A parachute mine or a concussive weapon could explain the internal injuries without external marks. This would also explain the government cover-up. Some have suggested infrasound low-frequency sound generated by wind patterns could have induced a state of irrational panic, causing them to flee. Others blame rare weather phenomena, like powerful katabatic winds, capable of creating terrifying sounds and disorienting conditions. And then there are the more fringe theories. Was it an encounter with something not of this world? The strange lights in the sky have led many to speculate about UFOs and alien contact, or perhaps a confrontation with a local tribe, although no evidence has ever supported this. The missing tongue has even led to theories about predators, yet no animal tracks were found anywhere near the bodies. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case, determined to solve it once and for all. Their conclusion, announced in 2020, was that a small, delayed slab avalanche was the most likely culprit. Their model suggests the avalanche trapped the hikers in their tent, forcing them to cut their way out. Disoriented and in the dark, they retreated to what they thought was a safer distance to wait it out. But hypothermia set in. The severe injuries, they claimed, were caused by the crushing weight of snow when they fell into the ravine. But for many, this explanation still doesn't fit. Critics argue it fails to account for too many key details. Why were the footprints so calm and orderly if they were fleeing an avalanche? Why would experienced hikers move further away from their life-saving gear? How does an avalanche explain the radiation on their clothes, or the strange lights in the sky? And what about the missing tongue? The official report simply states it was likely due to natural decomposition in a wet environment. What is certain is this: these 9 people were not amateurs. They were seasoned winter adventurers who understood the risks of the mountains. They wouldn't have panicked easily. Something extraordinary happened on that mountain. Something powerful enough to compel them to abandon their shelter and walk calmly, underdressed, into a fatal Siberian blizzard. The Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most thoroughly documented and fiercely debated mysteries of the 20th century. It's a case where every piece of evidence seems to contradict another, creating a puzzle with no clear solution. It's a haunting reminder that even in our modern world, there are places where the line between the known and the unknown blurs, and some stories just refuse to be explained. The mystery endures not because there is no evidence, but because the evidence itself refuses to fit into any single, logical narrative. This is Stories Off the Map, where real events still defy certainty. Thanks for watching. If you find these unsolved stories as fascinating as we do, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next journey into the unknown.